okay, he's a little better. He say, but don't ever put no white dude on me because that is disrespectful.
Larry Bird didn't just leave a mark on the NBA, he left a crater. From the moment he stepped onto a basketball court, his impact was undeniable. Even in college, he was such a force that the Boston Celtics drafted him before he had even committed to the NBA. When he finally arrived, he was an MVP-caliber superstar right out of the gate, instantly transforming the Celtics into a powerhouse and leading them on deep playoff runs year after year. Bird's career was defined by legendary battles against the greatest players of the 1980s, carving his name into the history books with each rivalry. But his influence didn't stop when he hung up his sneakers. He thrived as both a head coach and an executive, becoming the only person in NBA history to win MVP as a player, coach of the year, and executive of the year. His fingerprints are everywhere in the game's history. For over 3 decades, NBA legends have shared stories about Larry Bird, tales that sound almost mythical. With a nickname like Larry Legend, it's no surprise that his legacy feels larger than life. But don't just take my word for it. Let's hear what the greatest players of all time have to say, starting with none other than Michael Jordan. When discussing the greatest of all time, one name inevitably comes up first: Michael Jordan. For many fans, Jordan was their introduction to the NBA as he single-handedly revolutionized the league's popularity in the 1990s. But even the greatest have predecessors, and before Jordan could dominate, he had to battle through the legends who came before him.
I was like, okay. Now, I don't know how America gonna feel about that.
They'll be all right.
There's a reason Jordan ruled the 90s, but struggled to make deep playoff runs in the 80s. Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics stood in his way. Despite already being an elite talent, Jordan repeatedly ran into Bird's Celtics in the Eastern Conference, suffering back-to-back first playoff exits at their hands. Even Bird himself acknowledged Jordan's greatness early on, but at that stage, experience and a superior team kept him from breaking through. Jordan was known for rarely giving praise to his rivals, but when it came to Larry Bird, his admiration showed in different ways. Jordan's interactions with Larry Bird often carried a bittersweet tone. Frustration from losing to him on the court, but deep respect for his greatness off the court. He was more cordial, even inviting Bird to rounds of golf. Perhaps one of the few places he could actually beat him. At times, though, Jordan's frustration was more apparent. He didn't shy away from calling out Bird's physical and relentless style of play, even labeling him as dirty at times. "He's a tough, hard player that you actually get angry at sometimes," Jordan said. "Everybody does. I mean, it's a common thing. If you had 273 professional basketball players here, and you say, who's the dirtiest player in the NBA?
Larry Bird would probably beat LeBron 1-on-1.
Really?
You know, Bird tough to defend. Why? Because he looks slow as shit to me. So
95% would say Lambier or Larry Bird. Jordan's comment is interesting, considering very few players have ever accused Larry Bird of being dirty. Maybe Bird took a more aggressive approach specifically to gain an edge over Jordan, or perhaps Jordan was simply exaggerating to justify his struggles against him. On the other hand, Jordan's former teammate Dennis Rodman had a very different take on Bird. Rodman once claimed that Bird wouldn't succeed in today's NBA, even suggesting he'd be better suited for European basketball. The intent behind Rodman's statement remains unclear, leaving many to wonder exactly what he meant. Okay, I'll put it this way. If Larry Bird played in this era, I think he'd be in Europe, Rodman said. His game was fit for Boston at that time in the 80s, but in today's world, hell no. Rodman may have held some lingering frustration toward Bird, as the two had their fair share of intense battles on the court. Often assigned to guard Bird, Rodman experienced firsthand how relentless Bird was, scoring with ease and backing it up with constant trash talk. During this era, Rodman's teammate Isaiah Thomas shared an interesting story about Bird's competitive mindset. According to Thomas, Bird once took offense when the Pistons assigned a white defender to guard him, as white players at the time were often unfairly stereotyped as less athletic. Bird made it clear that wouldn't be enough to slow him down, which ultimately led Detroit to put Rodman on him as a more physical defensive matchup. Thomas recalled, he said, "Hey man, you can't put no white dude on me." That is straight disrespect. The next year, we come back, and I said, I got somebody for your ass. Bird asked who you got. I said, Rodman. He said, okay, he's a little better, but don't ever put no white dude on me because that is disrespectful. Larry Bird was a relentless trash talker, but what made him unique was his ability to make it humorous. His confidence and wit often made even his opponents laugh, like the irony of him complaining about white defenders when he himself was white. Bird's race was also a notable part of his superstardom, largely because of his iconic rivalry with Magic Johnson. The NBA leaned into their contrasting backgrounds, using their differences to fuel one of the greatest rivalries in sports history. In many ways, it's impossible to talk about Bird without mentioning Magic. Despite their years of fierce competition, Magic Johnson has nothing but the highest praise for Bird today, looking back and appreciating that their rivalry pushed him to become a better player. From the very beginning, Magic always felt like he was chasing Bird's level, a challenge that defined both of their legendary careers. I'm glad that we came in together because I had somebody to measure myself to, Magic said. He's great. I can't let him get too far ahead of me. I've got to work hard because I want to stay in pace. The Rookie of the Year race between Larry Bird and Magic Johnson wasn't even close. Bird won in a landslide. Even decades later, Magic admits that loss still stings, but instead of dwelling on it, he used it as motivation to reach Bird's level of greatness. As for how Bird's game would translate to today's NBA, many believe his skills would still hold up well. In fact, Gilbert Arenas has even stated that he would pick Bird to beat LeBron James in a one-on-one matchup, a testament to Bird's legendary skill set. Larry Bird would probably beat LeBron James one-on-one, Arenas said, because in one-on-one, it takes away from everything LeBron has, his physical strength, his speed, and all that power he has. Well, in one-on-one, you're talking about one dribble. That's not his corner. That's not his game. That's Larry's game. For a first-hand perspective on Larry Bird, his former teammate Danny Ainge offers valuable insight, having witnessed Bird's greatness up close. Danny recalls one thing above all, his unshakable confidence. Bird believed in his abilities so much that he would toy with defenders, telling them exactly what he was about to do, then doing it anyway. No matter how they tried to adjust, they simply couldn't stop him. I always considered myself a confident player, but Larry was on an entirely different level, Ainge said. There's so many stories about just him taking games over. You know, we'd coach and call a play, and he wouldn't run the play. He'd just take it and score. He just had so much belief in himself. He could get a shot with double teams at the end of games. Teams knew what we were running, and he'd still get a quality look off. The brilliance of Larry Bird's game went beyond the obvious, and many casual viewers may not fully appreciate the small details that made him so dominant. Even Kobe Bryant, relentless student of the game, initially struggled to understand what made Bird so difficult to defend. Curious, Kobe went straight to the source, asking Lakers legends from the Showtime era what made Bird so special. From an outsider's perspective, Bird didn't appear particularly fast or athletic, yet he was an unstoppable offensive force. There had to be more to his game than met the eye. Bird's tough to defend. Why? 'Cause you look slow as hell, Bryant said. I'm missing something, so I would always ask questions and try to learn as much as I could. After studying Larry Bird's game, Kobe Bryant became one of his biggest advocates, urging more people to watch and appreciate his greatness. Through his own research and conversations with NBA legends, Kobe gained a deeper understanding of what made Bird so special. He believed the younger generation should follow that same path, learning from the legends of the past to truly understand the game. One of those legends is Byron Scott, who battled Bird in multiple NBA finals as part of the Showtime Lakers. Scott shared a story about Bird's legendary mind games and trash talk delivered with an almost unsettling calmness. Bird wouldn't just talk trash. He would tell defenders exactly how he was going to score, daring them to stop him, then doing it anyway. Larry was just, and he was saying it in such a calm way that you didn't think it was trash talking. But it's trash talking, Scott said. You're not going to tell me you're going to go over there and shoot the ball in my face. That's trash talking. But he would tell you before the play even started. He'd just come out and say, "You ain't got to worry. This is where the ball's going. I'm going to catch it over here." And he'd tell you to play and catch it over there and shoot it. Playing against Larry Bird had to be incredibly frustrating. Imagine doing everything right as a defender, anticipating the play, rotating correctly, and working as a team, yet still being powerless to stop him. It had to be demoralizing, especially for Byron Scott and the Showtime Lakers, who faced Bird multiple times on the NBA's biggest stage. But while his opponents endured the frustration, Bird's teammates got a front-row seat to the show, often leading to dominant victories. Bill Walton recalls what he considers Bird's greatest game, which came in the NBA Finals against the Houston Rockets. On that night, Bird stepped out of his usual calm and collected demeanor to fire up his teammates in the locker room. They needed a win, and Walton could sense something different about Bird that day. Larry went out and just played his self-proclaimed greatest game that he ever played, and it was spectacular. In a game full of winners from the genetic lottery, like Ralph Sampson and Kevin McHale, Bird got every rebound, made every steal, made every pass, and literally did everything, making the rest of the world seem inconsequential. Walton described Bird as the greatest player I ever played with by far. This story perfectly illustrates what sets Larry Bird apart from other NBA greats. His game wasn't just about skill. It was his intangibles, his relentless drive, and unmatched basketball IQ that made him a true winner. Bill Walton often spoke about players who won the genetic lottery, the biggest, strongest, and most athletic stars in the NBA. He played alongside and against physical giants like Ralph Sampson and Kevin McHale, but Bird wasn't that type of player. What he lacked in physical gifts, he made up for with elite fundamentals, a tireless work ethic, and an unmatched feel for the game. That's why so many NBA legends, from Magic Johnson to Michael Jordan, have the highest respect for Bird. He didn't just play basketball, he mastered it